Right now, there's something right in front of you that you're not seeing. Not hidden, not behind you, right in front of your eyes. And your brain already deleted it. Think that's an exaggeration? Then explain this. How do you search for your keys for 30 seconds, checking the same table again and again, when they were sitting on it the entire time? Hold that thought, because in a few minutes, 24 of the best trained pairs of eyes in modern medicine are going to make that exact same mistake, just with something considerably bigger than a set of keys. That gap between what your eyes point at and what you actually register is one of the stranger things about being human. For a long time, nobody could prove it was even real. Then someone put a gorilla in the room. In the late 1990s, two psychologists at Harvard, Daniel Simons and Christopher Chabris, got stuck on an uncomfortable question. How much of the world in front of you do you actually see? Not what you assume you see, what you really do. Most people are certain of the answer. Of course you'd notice anything huge, anything strange, anything that walked right up and stared you down. So Simons and Chabris built an experiment to test that confidence. It became one of the most famous studies in the history of psychology. Here's what they did. They filmed people passing a basketball, some in white shirts, some in black. They gave volunteers one job: count how many times the players in white pass the ball. Simple. You lock in, you count. And while you're counting, a woman zips through the middle of the game in a full gorilla costume. She stops. She turns to the camera. She beats her chest, presumably regretting this particular summer job. Then she strolls off the other side, in full view, well lit, for several seconds. You'd catch that. Obviously you'd catch that. How does anyone miss a chest-beating gorilla standing in the center of the frame? Roughly half of them did. Not because they were careless. They were staring straight at the screen, eyes wide open, and their brains simply refused to file it as real. Two other psychologists, Arian Mack and Irvin Rock, had already given this a name: inattentional blindness. A blindness that has nothing to do with your eyes and everything to do with your attention. The finding was strange enough to win an Ig Nobel Prize, the award for research that makes you laugh first, then think. The laughing part is easy. The thinking part should worry you a little. Because if you can miss a gorilla, what's invisible to you right now without you knowing it? Here's the part almost nobody actually understands. You don't see with your eyes. You see with your attention. Picture this for a second. Imagine your brain forced to register absolutely everything around you all at once. Every leaf, every reflection, every face in the crowd, every car at the edge of your vision, every shadow moving across a wall. You wouldn't be able to cross a street. You'd freeze on the sidewalk, drowning in your own front yard. So it doesn't do that. It picks. Every instant, a filter decides what matters and quietly throws out the rest before you ever get a vote. And that filter runs on exactly one question. What are you looking for? The people counting passes were looking for the ball. Ball, white shirt, ball. Their filter was set to basketball. A gorilla is not a basketball. So the filter dropped it. Not blurred it, not shrugged it off. Deleted it before it ever reached the part of your brain that thinks, wait, that's a gorilla. But here's where it stops being cute. Because you might be thinking, sure, but that's untrained people, half watching a silly video. Give me an expert. An expert would catch it. A researcher named Trafton Drew wanted to find out if that was actually true. Drew studied attention, and somewhere along the way he became fascinated with radiologists, the doctors whose entire job is hunting scans for the earliest, faintest signs of cancer. He'd stand in their dark reading rooms watching them spot flecks he genuinely could not see even when they pointed directly at them. If anyone on Earth could beat the filter, surely it was them. So in 2013, Drew and his colleagues handed 24 expert radiologists their normal job. Search a stack of lung scans for small nodules, the exact thing they'd spent years training to catch. And into the very last scan, Drew hid a gorilla. Not a subtle one. 48 times the size of the nodules they were hunting for, sitting right there in the lung. 83% of them never saw it. 20 out of 24 expert doctors scrolled straight past a gorilla the size of a small planet, relatively speaking. And here's the detail that should really get you. Drew tracked their eyes. Most of the ones who missed it had looked directly at it. Their gaze landed right on the gorilla. Their eyes sent the image through. Their attention filed it under "does not compute" and moved on. So surely, out of all that, somebody found the pattern, the type of person who catches it versus the type who doesn't. It has to come down to intelligence, right? Focus? Being generally a sharper human being? In 2024, a team led by Simons pulled together every study that had ever tested exactly that question. Dozens of them, going back years. They were hunting for the one trait, the thing that finally separates the noticers from the missers. They didn't find it. No level of intelligence reliably saves you, no personality type, no amount of simply trying harder to pay attention. Which means whatever's invisible to you right now isn't a personal failure, it's just the standard setting. The gorilla doesn't only come for the distracted, it comes for everyone, including 20 of the most trained eyes in the room, who looked straight at it and still walked away certain there'd been no gorilla at all. And that's the moment this whole thing flips, because it means the problem was never the gorilla. The keys were there, the gorilla was there, the radiologists looked right at it, and still it never existed in their world. Not because they were blind, because for your brain, seeing and looking were never the same thing. You don't live in reality, you live in the part your attention agrees to build. Think about your day for a second. The friend telling you something while you half read a text, and afterward you can't recall a word of it. The entire drive home last night, which you cannot picture at all. The face across the table, the one you actually love, that you quietly stopped really looking at somewhere around year 3. None of that is coldness. It's the filter, running constantly, choosing constantly, deleting the parts of the world you never thought to search for. So here's the last thing. For the entire length of this video, your attention has been locked onto these words, which means this whole time, the filter has been running, which means something else, somewhere close to you, has been quietly deleted. Maybe a sound, maybe someone who walked into the room, maybe something you've been staring at since this started. You'll probably never know, because your brain already decided it wasn't your story. Your eyes never changed. What you were looking for did.